Imagine, if you will, nearly 16 years ago, you're sitting on a sun lounger, just celebrated Christmas, maybe feeling a little bit hungover. It's Boxing Day, you're on a beautiful tropical island. Later that morning, a magnitude 9 earthquake strikes off the coast of Indonesia, sending a tsunami wave so powerful the devastation is almost immeasurable. 230,000 people lose their lives around coastal regions, and countless others are displaced. You're a young executive, just enjoyed a wonderful Christmas in your homeland. You hear about this devastation. What would you do next? Well, these are some of the questions that I've asked my good friend, Suren Sornalingham, who found himself in just such a situation. And I think his story is one of wonder and amazement, and I find it very inspiring, and I hope you do too. So, enjoy this one with my good friend, Suren.
On a train, in a bus, in a car, on the way to your job. All alone with your kids, with your wife, or with your dog. You can listen anywhere, you can listen everywhere, to the Philip Maloney podcast.
Hi, Philip.
Hi, Suren. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Yes, I'm very well. I'm very well. As per our intro there, I think it's there's much to talk about, much to discuss.
Yeah.
But before we go into all of that, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thanks. Yeah.
We're
enjoying this second lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it's a second lockdown, it's just a continuation, isn't it? Of the first one. Yeah.
Well, it's like a wave, isn't it? It's like a wave. So we have our
very apt.
Our wave of degrees of lockdown.
Yeah.
That's one way that we have to look at it. But all well, family?
Yeah, they're all good, thanks. Yeah, really good. We are have enjoyed actually a really great summer. Played a lot of cricket with my son Christian, despite lockdown, so that's been great. Yeah, we're good. Looking forward to at least trying to enjoy a decent Christmas.
Excellent.
Waiting for the weather to break.
Yes. So we want it either snowing or warm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to take anything in between that. But I think we could dive right in and go into a few other areas a bit later on in this video. So hopefully you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. But I'm itching to let the people know what was happening 16 years ago. And then I'm really interested to let the people know that they might not have, is how things have continued and how things have got to where they are today. So take us back to you. Maybe the day before, maybe a couple of days before. What were you doing? Where was your head? I mean, everything was going good for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a fantastic time, really, up until that fateful day. I was living in Amsterdam, a bachelor, had a great job working for Nike, brilliant life, doing well, earning well, no real complaints at all. And, I kind of, because I guess I was young, free and single, and I got to travel an awful lot with my work, but also socially. And yeah, I planned to go to Sri Lanka for Christmas. Christmas is a great time in Sri Lanka. It's a fantastic party town, Colombo, the capital, and I have a lot of friends there. So I had planned for a while to get over there and just spend Christmas with my friends, my family, and also party on through to the New Year's celebrations as well. Enjoy the sun, the sand, and the rest of it. So that was really my motivation at the time. I hadn't obviously appreciated how things turned out, but I was enjoying Christmas Day on the beach in a place called Gaul, which is in the southwest of the island. Very famous old Dutch port. Beautiful hotel, sitting on the beach just with my friends, sipping cocktails, on Christmas Day, which was absolutely fantastic. And then Christmas evening, we returned back into the capital.
Okay.
And just continued celebrations really late into the night.
All right.
So yeah, fantastic lifestyle at that point.
That's your bubble.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the normal family life for people around that coastline? What's the main industries that people rely on in those areas?
I mean, Sri Lanka is an island, so it's a very rich culture of mixtures of races and religions, which is what makes it so special. Christmas is celebrated by everybody. So at the time, again, that festive atmosphere is very much there. As an island, it's very dependent on its coastal and its tourism and its fisheries as well. So you've got a lot of fishing villages dotted around the coastline. Tourism is massive in terms of hotels. Christmas is a very busy time of year. A lot of people like myself traveling to enjoy not just the celebrations of Christmas, but the warm weather, the sun. And Sri Lanka at the time was heralded as one of the top tourist destinations in the world. So, people flooding from all over to the island, and an important industry for the locals as well, the tourism.
Yeah. Okay. So so mirroring your experience there, you've got all the people enjoying the culture and the vibrancy of that.
Absolutely.
And then you've got a lot of local people who are relying on that, and I guess they're putting in all the sort of usual tourist stuff, restaurants, fisheries, trips, the all-encompassed experience for travelers such as yourself. Okay. Yeah. So that evening you head back into Colombo.
Yeah. So we went back into Colombo. We enjoyed some more sort of celebrations in the evening, dinners, drinks, that kind of stuff. Colombo is a really, really good place, great nightlife, quite a young, vibrant society as well. My friends all who live there, it's fair to say, they do very well for themselves. They're professionals, and therefore they enjoy, I guess, the higher status of society there. So we enjoyed staying in nice hotels, lovely restaurants, great bars, great clubs as well, and that's what we did Christmas.
Okay, so you had a full evening, evening of indulgence.
Lots of plenty of drink, hungover Sunday morning, Boxing Day, and we planned. I say we, me and my very good friend Mohan, who's a barrister, a local and a barrister in Colombo. Very, very well renowned barrister. He and I had arranged to travel Boxing Day morning down to a place called Bentota, which is another seaside town,
right,
to meet friends who had planned a beach party, but also had intended to go deep sea fishing that morning. So you can imagine, so there's quite a large crowd of my friends had already headed down to the south, and they were down at the beach. Some of them were already out in open water on fishing boats. Because we were a little bit hungover, Mohan and I, we decided to delay our trip by a couple of hours. That decision probably, because had we traveled to our coastal destination when we intended to, we probably would have been killed by the tsunami that engulfed the island. So our delay, we were ready to get going, and then news came in very random sort of news came in that something had happened of some significance and that it was ill-advised for us to travel.
If you don't mind, just give us an idea of sort of timings here. So
yeah, okay. So
that morning,
Boxing Day morning, it was a Sunday. The tsunami had started to hit. So the tsunami hit in 2 waves. The first wave, physical wave, came in at around 8 o'clock in the morning. So peak time really for a Sunday morning. People would have been active. People would have been commuting. Would have been preparing for the day ahead. Sunday is a religious day as well. You know, a lot of Christians, a lot of Catholics, people go to church, and that part of the island was also rich in sort of Catholics and Christian religions. So, you know, typical Sunday morning, that wave came in and had a huge impact. Came in some 2 or 3 kilometers inland and wiped out everything in its path. And then about 40 minutes or so after, the second wave came in, which was even more devastating. So there were some really strange things happening. I mean, I didn't witness them firsthand, but I saw the aftermath.
Of course.
You know, stories of the wave.
Thank God you didn't.
Firsthand. Exactly. But certainly saw the aftermath and the devastation that these waves, this tsunami had created and caused. And, you know, but there were stories well publicized now of, you know, how the waves had moved out to sea, exposing huge amounts of beachhead, which had never been seen before, fish literally flapping around on sand. And people were incredibly curious what was going on. So they started walking out.
Yeah.
You know, this phenomena was completely unusual to them. So lots of people have walked out into the beach. You know, what would have been originally water, you know, sand that would have been covered by water had been exposed. And so people were looking at coral that they hadn't seen before. And as they walked out, of course, little did they realize that wave was coming back, and it was coming back in a ferocious way. And a lot of people had lost their lives just through curiosity, being out there, trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of what happened Sunday morning, sort of between 8 and 10. I was up by about 9. My friend Mohan came to pick me up. We were supposed to head down. Then, of course, Colombo, which was wrapped around the southwest coast, had also been affected. The waves had definitely come in. This is where we saw the tsunami coming in to Colombo, washing up on the roads, up to the sort of hotel edges. And we realised, you know, something was going on. Didn't quite know what it was.
So it came in as far as
it did.
Your hotel.
Yeah. It was pretty significant, and but nothing compared to some of the other coastal areas. We didn't know what to do, but we tried to get in contact with our friends who were already down in Bentota. We managed to get hold of them on their cell phone to find out that they described that they were out in water. They were on a boat out on the water, and they were describing the horrors of what they were seeing, which was at one minute they were out at sea, next minute they couldn't see the coastline. The coastline had completely disappeared. And of course, that was the point at which the tsunami had hit the coastline and elevated its, you know,
I guess
the horizon.
Yeah.
They were panicking because they didn't know what to do. We just said, look, stay where you are. We'll figure out what was going on. So at that point, Phil, none of us really had heard the word tsunami before. I mean, it wasn't very common.
Yeah.
You know, Sri Lanka was also, you know, it had its own civil unrest as well, with civil war between the government and the Tamil Tigers. So it was a heightened state of fear. So a lot of people panicked and thought the Tamil Tigers had been setting off, had something to do with this, you know. So people were panicking, and there was all sorts of all sorts of conspiracy theories were going on as to what was happening. So it was a very confusing time. But because we had friends who were right in it, we were able to get first-hand knowledge of what was going on. It was quite shocking, really. But it wasn't really until a couple of hours later when the news media, the TV, started to publish pictures and images of what had been going on. And that's when we realized how bad things were. And we started to really panic for our friends who were already out in open water, worrying about them. We knew at that point that they'd already lost some people, but we didn't know where those people had gone and had survived or not.
Right.
So we started to get, So we started to get these stories of some of our friends missing. So we Moen and I decided to sort of go. We went to one of the guys. His name was Deepan. He was one of the guys out in water. Good friend of ours. We went to his family home. His parents, who were all clearly very upset, very worried, didn't know how they were going to get Deepan and his friends back at this point, and by what was going on with this tsunami. So we spent a few hours with the family, really just sort of trying to figure out how do we get these guys back, and we had all sorts of ideas about sending helicopters out and trying to recover them that way. But in a long story short, we didn't see them again for about 14 hours. They were out in open water for 14 hours.
Right.
They'd run out of fuel.
Just waiting for things to settle.
Just waiting for things to settle. They were out on a boat. A number of the fishermen that were out there as well. They all huddled together. They tied their boats together and stayed together as a group, completely unclear about how they were going to get back. And it was only until 14 hours later that a Sri Lankan naval vessel was able to repatriate them. So we spent most of that time with the family, consoling them, worried about our friends, trying to find out where everybody else was. So it was complete chaos, really.
Yeah. Well, the whole country has erupted in.
It had.
So there's your story, and then there's a couple of 100,000 more stories.
Exactly, and it's a really interesting. When I reflect on it now, it just goes to show. Right then, in that moment, you're only incredibly selfish. You only think about yourself or your immediate friends. You don't. I certainly didn't think about the wider impact of what was going on because I didn't know, for one thing. But it wasn't until later that evening that the real story started to come out. Devastation, the deaths, the mass deaths that was occurring.
Yeah.
Then us understanding what this tsunami thing was, and then starting to understand that this enormous wave, whilst it had impacted the southwest corner of Sri Lanka, the biggest impact on the island was the eastern seaboard, which took the full frontal impact of this huge wave. So we started to get some news. So we had a friend who had called us and asked us if we could help with getting aid across to the other side of the island to a place called Ampara. And so we said, of course, what can we do? And she just said, look, can you just get us some medicines and go to the pharmacy? So Moen and I, having spent most of the day worried about our close friends and then established that they were kind of okay, we then turned our hand to seeing whether we could help a little bit. So we from a friend. So we went out and literally I went to the cash points, emptied as much money as I possibly could. And then we started driving around the different pharmacies around Colombo area, buying up medicines. We were told specifically what to buy, which was things like antiseptic, bandages, milk powder for babies, some really specific requirements. So we went around the pharmacies of Colombo buying up this aid.
Okay, so this is the beginning. As I listened to it, this is the beginning of a life-changing mindset, because you've gone from, for want of a better term, socialite, um, you know,
Yeah.
uh, huge corporation executive, having Christmas, to all of a sudden now you've done that thing where your friends are okay, they're going to be all right, and then you get this phone call, and then all of a sudden you're now emptying your account and looking
Yeah.
at buying things for other people. So did you know what was happening to you at that moment? Did you know that there was a change afoot?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to describe it because I don't talk about it very often. This is the first time, by the way, Philip, that I'm actually openly talking about my experiences,
I
sort of
appreciate
more
that.
publicly. And no, it's great actually. It's been a long time coming, so it's a great forum to be able to do it. But what I would say is you're absolutely right. I mean, I have lived a privileged life, utterly privileged life, and to say that I was charitable before the tsunami would be a falsehood. I was probably, like many people, a token charitable person. I would do what I did, but I wouldn't feel that value. I kind of
Yeah.
did it for the sake of doing it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Children
Absolutely.
in need every year,
Yeah.
10
You
quid
pop a bit
there.
in here, you pop a bit in there.
Exactly. So
Not
really
to be
just
sniffed at, but
just
that's just what it was.
token gestures more than
Hmm.
anything else. I think what happened to me in those 24 hours was the realization that I was alive, and I didn't understand, I didn't know what had happened to have stopped me from traveling down to the south, because I truly believe if Moen and I got in that car and driven and that taken the route that we would have taken, we would have been wiped out and we would have died for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So that realization of,
Just in that spell of being late for the
that,
boat. Either you were on the boat and you
yeah,
survived, or you missed that boat and
or you were in the car and the waves would have taken you. But the point is, we should have been, we shouldn't have been where we were, and yet we were safe.
yeah.
So some people describe this as a sort of survival mentality, or survivor's guilt. I think they call it now. And this is
Okay.
what I've read about
It should
since.
have. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel I probably suffered from that. I couldn't explain why I was still alive. I couldn't explain why I had survived, and yet so many people around me had died
Mm.
or had suffered. I couldn't explain it. So I think, to answer your question, my life changed in that moment. My purpose had changed, in as much as I had a really clear, focused purpose. Because I couldn't explain my survival, I realized that, I was there for a reason. It sounds a bit spiritual, maybe, a bit wild, but genuinely, I thought, well, I
I
survived
don't
for a
mind that
reason.
at all. Yeah.
Survived for a reason. I'm here. I'm in Sri Lankan. I have assets at my disposal. I can do something. I can add some value here. I can be useful. And I think that's what dawned on me really at that point. And I never really looked back from there.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
let me pause you there just for a moment, because I want to be a little bit precise in regards to, you're going out to buying pharmaceuticals. Did you know at that point that what you were going to set yourself into? Or so take me to the point where it was like that, oh, okay, I thought maybe I'd just buy some pharmaceuticals and take that flight that I had booked
yeah,
and go home and just sort of watch it all unfold.
yeah. Phew, I can't remember the moment, but
Hmm.
I just remember thinking to myself, I'm here for a reason.
Right.
And my reason isn't to get back on a plane. A lot of people did. A lot of people
Yeah.
a lot of people were trying to get themselves home and away from, the danger. Whereas for me, I thought to myself, I'm going to throw myself into the danger.
Okay. All right. So
I have just missed, a near death experience, right?
mm,
So at that point, the switch flicked in my head, which just said, look, I need to throw myself into this. And I became utterly fearless. It's a really difficult, weird thing to describe, but I became utterly fearless because I genuinely thought I was just given a second life. And at that point, I didn't care. And, I was in a weird situation where I didn't have kids at the time. I wasn't married. I didn't, other than my immediate family, who cared and loved me, and vice versa, there wasn't anything else for me. So this crystallization of purpose became really, really clear in my head. So that's when, at that point, it's not so much I knew what was happening or what was going to come. All I knew was I was in a mindset of I would do whatever it took to add as much value and be as useful as I possibly could in that moment.
Right. Yeah.
And it was utterly hand to mouth. We really didn't know. Mo and I got in his car. We went to the cash points, took us about as much money as we possibly could, and we went round to the pharmacies. The pharmacies by this point were closed because it was like 10, 11 o'clock at night. But we were banging on the doors because most of these pharmacies are owned. The proprietors live above their shops.
Yeah, that's not unusual in that part of the world.
That's right. Yeah.
To kind of wake up the proprietor and
I remember Mo and I were banging on the doors, waking these people up, walking in, literally taking a trolley or a basket and just piling stuff in, going to the owners and sort of asking them for discounts. Because, we figured, well, everyone's got to be, everyone's got to help here. I just remember getting absolutely no benefit from them at all. They charged us full price. They didn't offer us any kind of discount. They kind of rolled their eyes at us when we asked them. But we paid it. We paid what we paid. We collected the goods. We then took it to our friend, whose husband had a Jeep, loaded the Jeep up with this aid, and he then drove 10 hours across the island to deliver it. And our day, Boxing Day, ran into the next day, the 27th, and we didn't finish that day till 5 a.m. Ended up back in my hotel, slept for about 3 hours, got a phone call from Mohan saying, look, we need to do that run again because this is no joke. There aren't thousands, there are hundreds of thousands of people in trouble. And so we just literally the next day did the same thing, drove around the different markets. I ran out of money at that point. Yeah. So I rang my brother. Clearly during this time, of course, I had lots of people trying to get hold of me, wondering whether I was okay, including my family, and I was in contact with them. But I rang my brother and I said, look, I need more money, but I don't have any and I can't get hold of it. He was fantastic. He rounded up my family and he raised, I don't know, I can't remember exactly the number, but it was about £5,000, which is a lot of Sri Lankan rupees. And he had arranged the money. We had it wired over. I went to a local businessman who was a contact of my friend Mohan's, and he gave us cash. And I'll never forget the cash because it's a lot of rupees.
That must have been like almost a container box full, right?
Well, it was actually if you imagine a Sainsbury's shopping bag, I had one of those. It was a yellow plastic shopping bag, and I just stuffed all the money in that. And we literally drove around Colombo with this yellow plastic shopping bag full of money, going from one vendor to the next, buying up aid. And we spent the whole day doing that.
So what are we into? 48 hours now?
We're now on the 27th, yeah. But and as the days and the hours are ticking over, there's more and more news coming through. The media is now catching up. The TV coverage of the devastation is becoming very real. Yeah. The news coming back from, so our friend who drove across the island to deliver aid had come back with real news of mass death, mass burials, not hundreds, thousands of people, lots of children who didn't survive in the shallows of the tsunami, okay, who didn't have the strength to hang on to palm trees for their lives, buried through the. A lot of people died because when the waves came in, it was the
silt and all sorts, right?
Silt, the rubbish that was in the water would hit them, knock them out.
Yeah. And debris and
all of that,
because you're pulling down buildings. There's fencing.
That's right.
There's also there's netting. There's fishing implements.
That's right.
Vending implements. There's all sorts.
Yeah, I think the striking thing on the 27th, what was really interesting, because we'd now done about 2 or 3 of these runs of aid, was by the end of the 27th, the requests. What we were doing, we were going around the markets buying spades, shovels, and kerosene. We were buying antiseptic tubs. All of these things were basically the materials required for burying people. So by the 27th, we'd gone from providing water and milk and medicines to the end of the 27th, where we were trying to provide equipment to bury people. And that was striking when you realize at that point the sheer scale of what was going on. Having to try and source machines to dig mass graves, that came through as well. Obviously, it was well beyond my reach. I still had my plastic bag, right, of money. I wasn't ready to buy big machinery, but that was the point that Moen and I realized that we couldn't sustain these local kind of runs of aid work. So we got invited to a small NGO called TRO, the Tamil Rehabilitation Organization. Right. There's lots of NGOs in Sri Lanka, and we were trying to work with the big ones like UNHCR and the Red Cross. We went to all of them, but what was very frustrating at the time was they just weren't doing anything because they were held up in the bureaucracy of the government. Yeah. So the government were trying to get themselves organized, but they were incredibly slow. They had pretty much tied the hands of all the big NGOs. They didn't want any of them to do anything until the government could coordinate them. Right. So lots of these NGOs were collecting aid, but they weren't able to move it.
Right.
The TRO, which was a very small NGO, and it was the only one that was representing the north and east of Sri Lanka because of the political situation with the Tamil Tigers.
Yeah.
They were the only ones that were actually doing anything. They were operating. They were bypassing the government rules, which they always did anyway, and they were kind of doing their own thing. And they were actually the only ones moving aid. We went and met the guys running the TRO, and it was a very small outfit in a very small suburb of Colombo in a small office. Mm-hmm. And we met the head of the TRO, and he kind of said, what do you guys do? And I said, well, I kind of work in supply chain and logistics. And my friend Moen said, yeah, he does it for Nike. And the guy's eyes lit up and said, yeah, well, can you run it for us? So I said, yeah, happy to get involved. So I ended up getting appointed as the head of logistics and supply chain for the TRO, which sounds like a big title, but it wasn't really. It was just literally me. So,
yeah, I think it's always difficult to blow your own trumpet, isn't it? But I think that gentleman's decision to to say, what do you do, you know, and not kind of like, you know, be a bit of a not necessarily a tyrant, but there's so many sort of like business models where they will tell you what you're going to be doing, right? And they could have had someone with your knowledge and with your abilities doing whatever, because you would have done whatever. You would have done whatever they wanted you to do.
Yeah.
Almost at that point. But for that moment, for him to say, right, you know, what skills are you bringing? What expertise can you bring? And for you to then obviously, you know, be at that point of saying, look, logistics, you know, and at that point it's so important. So yeah, no, that's I think that's
you're right.
It's
I mean,
so
you're right,
overlooked
Phil.
sometimes.
Yeah, you're right, Phil. And actually, that's kind of testament to how the NGO operated, which is why I was able to do stuff. You know, they weren't really interested in the politics. They were interested in how do we get stuff done, and we want people who can help get stuff done. So.
Yeah.
For
the big NGOs with the government gripped with inertia,
right? Yeah,
total
right.
Bureaucracy.
Absolutely. So when Mohan and myself and another friend joined, Gandhi, the three of us literally were appointed different roles, and we just got on with it. So I had the logistics role. Mohan was responsible for some of the procurement activities. Gandhi was responsible for customs. So, you know, we kind of had roles. What was really interesting about that, Phil, was this is the first time, having worked in sort of the supply chain logistics industry for most of my career, this was the first time I was actually hands-on, not sat behind a desk on a computer with a team of people. I was like loading trucks, handballing products on and off, you know, sifting through donations, trying to figure out what was good, what was not good, you know, looking at sell-by dates on bits of medicine to see what we could use, what we couldn't use. I mean, this was proper.
You were in.
Hands-on, getting really mucky, you know, and I loved it. I kind of just got stuck into it. And it was good because it not only was it just sort of hands-on, but it was with an NGO that had offices dotted all of the way around the coastline of Sri Lanka. So, you know, it was good because we had different regions of the island faxing in every day their different needs and their different requirements. And that's when so my job was to be able to respond to that by providing the aid.
Yeah. So at this point, and from what I know, I guess the media had your full attention for what was happening in the island. Things were getting really serious. International news was starting to congregate.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'd like to bring to the attention for all the viewers out there is the radio interview that you did, which I think illustrates the environment perfectly, as they describe, you know, shirtless men carrying bags of flour into trucks. It seemed like the ringtone that you set on your phone was just the loudest possible ringtone that you could possibly have for that environment, which was the only one that would actually alert you to it, because it was so like there was a real hive of activity in that radio interview that you could hear, and it really does set the scene. So if you can tell the people just a little bit more about that, I'll put the details in the link to this video.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot happening at that time, Phil. I mean, you know, I suppose, you know, my focus was to start getting this aid across to the coastal areas that had been devastated. I was lucky enough to be assigned quite a few volunteers. There was a lot of people walking into the office asking to help, most of them tourists from all over the world, which is fantastic. So I got assigned about 10 people to help me. And our daily job was to buy aid. So I was sending people out all over Colombo trying to gather aid up. And, you know, every day we set ourselves a target. And I managed to secure one haulier with 20 trucks and literally booked them out, because I knew that trucks were short. There was a shortage of trucks. Huge demand for them, but I managed to monopolize one haulier, which meant that we had 20 trucks available every day. So our target was to load 20 trucks and distribute them across the island. These were 20-ton trucks, so if you do the maths, we I think we must have distributed about 5,000 tons, 10,000 tons of aid, over a period of a couple of weeks across the island. And that was the efforts of these volunteers.
That's incredible.
Because we had started to mobilize such high volumes, probably more than any other NGO were doing on the island, we drew a bit of attention from the media, for sure. We had people coming, knocking on our door. We had the BBC, we had ABC Australia, we had the New York Times, we had Wall Street Journal, we had various journalists and media coming to the office asking for stories, following us around. But one particular paper, the Wall Street Journal, stayed with us for a while. They kind of hooked onto us. They kind of particularly were quite attracted to what I was doing and had spent quite a few days shadowing me. I was more than happy to do it, but I was very clear with them, which was, I wasn't there for the media. I was there for getting work done. So I asked them to just to follow and not interfere. And they were very good. But it was really clear to me that, I was curious as to why they were so interested in what we were doing. And they were interested in what we were doing, partly because we were really mobilizing, and we were doing some serious volume of movement. But also they were interested in the political story as well, because we were the only NGO traveling into Tamil Tiger held territories around the island. So this is, I guess, there's some background for Sri Lanka and the civil unrest there. But at the time of the tsunami, the northeast of the island was controlled by the Tamil Tigers, who some will describe as freedom fighters, others will describe as terrorists. It really depends on how you perceive.
Yeah, you're going to have your point of view. Yeah.
Right. So the Tamil Tigers control the north and east, and because we were the only NGO that could have access to those areas, the Wall Street Journal were very interested in that. And I remember having a conversation with the journalists who were particularly interested in some of the products that we had in our warehouse and was snooping around them. And I jokingly said to them, I said, look, if you're looking for AK-47s and grenades, you're not going to find them. But if you're looking for sardine tins and rice, there's plenty of that here. And I think that when I said that to them, they kind of took a step back and sort of realized that, we weren't on a political mission. We were purely on a purely on a humanitarian.
So even mission. During that time, there was a degree of kind of, is there something else going on here? Almost a mistrust, right?
There was a mistrust, and these are journalists. So they're always looking for an edge, always looking for a story.
Yeah.
What was interesting was at the time is that we were having some difficulty with the government, with the army in particular, who were interfering with some of our trucks that we were sending across the island, interfering as much as stopping them, beating up our drivers, taking the loads and sending them south. So you got to remember the north and the east is mainly Tamil held territory, whereas the south is predominantly the Sinhalese majority held territory. So the army were best pleased with us distributing aid to the Tamil areas when they felt that their own people, the Sinhalese majority, were being denied. So they actually at one point were physically stopping our trucks, beating our drivers up and stealing our product. And this was product that was hand-picked to be delivered to specific sort of requirements of aid. I was immensely frustrated by that.
Right. So you're okay. I mean, I don't have a vested interest or what have you. But from what you're describing to me, initially the reason for you and for the organization and for is it TRO?
TRO, yeah.
Was because of the inactivity of the government.
Yeah.
The army obviously works in conjunction with the government.
Yeah.
following on your success, you're now then being targeted by the people who should have been mobilizing these relief aid efforts, and effectively what they're kind of pilfering off the back of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I try and remain apolitical, but at the time, as I said, I was fearless.
If that happened, that happened.
Yeah, it did happen, and also
whoever's to blame is to blame, and you don't have to pick a side. But if that happened,
no, and we didn't really. I mean, what I would say is I was fearless at the time. I really didn't care about my life. I just knew that I would just do what needed to be done to get stuff done. That was my only purpose, and that was my only. It wasn't about whether it was supporting of one group or another. It didn't matter to me. Mm-hmm. The drivers that I had that were going across the islands were Sinhalese drivers. Mm-hmm. These were people who would never in their lives even dare to go to the north and east because of their fear of the Tamil. And yet, because they were providing a service to help people, they put that aside and they were prepared to drive to territories, and they did. So in this experience for me, I had such massive exposure to the true identity of Sri Lankans, which is just kind, generous, caring people. But I also got exposure to the politics, and I got exposure to the toxic nature of government and military and politics. Mm-hmm. And they're two very different things. Sadly, we got exposure to it. I got exposure for the first time to it. I had a gun held to my head. I've been threatened.
Literally?
Yeah, literally. I've been threatened. I had all of that experience during my time in Sri Lanka. I saw
what was the scenario where you had a gun against your head?
Well, we had a situation where we had some. We went to a camp, a refugee camp, where it was clearly a camp that was for the majority, the Sinhalese majority, fishermen, fisherfolk, etc. But they also had Tamil people there, a small group of Tamil Muslims actually, and they were very badly treated. So when we went to visit the camp where we were trying to distribute aid, I walked around the camp and we found this small group of women and children who were huddled together in a corner. And when I talked to them, they were terrified to talk to me because I had cameras with me as well. I had ABC of Australia following us around at that time, terrified to talk to us. And so when we asked them were they okay, they would sort of say, yes, they're fine. But it was quite clear that they weren't.
Right.
So during that trip, I kind of circled back when the cameras had disappeared and went back and talked to these women. And I speak Tamil, not brilliantly, but enough to communicate. And they had told me how they were being starved and that they weren't being fed and they had children who hadn't eaten for days. And, it was a pretty sad situation.
Why was that?
Because of their race, because they were Tamils.
Not because there wasn't food?
Not because there wasn't food. There was food. It's just that when they were lined up to collect their food, they were always put at the end of the line. And by the time they got to the food, there was very little left for them. So they had been sort of discriminated against. And the sad side of that is just about 2 kilometers up the road, there was another camp which was predominantly Tamil people. So so I kind of asked the brigadier who ran that particular camp whether we could move these ladies and kids to the other camp. Which is where we got into a bit of a confrontation. He didn't like what I was asking him. He knew that he had to have Tamil people in the camp to demonstrate that he was representing all of the races. It was more of a token gesture. And he refused. He refused to move these people. So, it kind of got quite heated. And that's when sort of the guns, it's an army-run camp. So,
Yeah.
So that's when I was sort of threatened. But I stood my ground. I had the benefit of having the media there, so that really helped. Probably
Okay.
helped.
Yeah.
I also had the benefit of being British.
Well, what do you
That
think
helped
would have
too.
happened if you didn't have the media there?
I don't think it would have been that bad. I mean, I'm still British. I had that air cover as well, I suppose. But you just don't know in those situations, Phil.
Yeah,
You just don't know. There are situations. Like I say, I had people who have been beaten up, who've come back bloodied and bruised from dealing with the army. So it was quite. And you remember, this is a civil war as well. So there's a heightened state of tension.
Yeah, it's a different.
Yeah.
You're not in you're not in sort of.
To ask me, would I do that now that I have a child and I'm settled back again? I'm not sure, because you have other people to think about and care about. But at the time, I was utterly fearless.
So you were adamant that, or you were arguing, and your point, much to the annoyance of this brigadier, in a camp, for these people to go to another camp.
Exactly, and then I basically threatened him and said, look, I'll publicize this. So that kind of changed the tension a little bit, and those women and children were moved back to the other camp in the end. So it took a little while, but we got there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was just one example of it. I mean, the Wall Street Journal guys wrote an article.
Yes.
In the end, and I ended up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and it was so much about me, but it was a really important intervention at the time, because it brought some attention and awareness to the political disparity, I guess. And
I mean, that's quite a nice thing to come out of that.
It was a really important thing to happen, because at the time, because of the obstruction we were having just to get things done, that article pretty much cleared those obstructions.
Right.
The government realized that this was a very public. They couldn't be seen, in a natural disaster like this, where the whole world were watching.
Yeah.
The government couldn't afford to be seen as
getting involved with tittle-tattle.
Right, or in fact, if anything, getting in the way of saving lives. And we were very much it was very clear from the article that we were in the spirit of saving lives.
Yeah.
So it was a very important intervention by the media, and I was very grateful. I was a bit annoyed because they had mentioned the fact that I worked for Nike at the time, and I'd asked them to try and avoid that, really, because I didn't want to compromise my employer. But it's journalism, right? So it was a good story. Nike executive in Sri Lanka, running aid, in the northern areas amongst the Tamil Tigers.
It would have almost been like Nike sent you to do that.
Yeah, it was a perfect, perfect story, I suppose.
Okay.
But it was good. At the end of the day, it helped us.
Okay, so how long did that go on for? This I'm going to describe it as like the chaos of working out all of these bits and pieces. When did it start to settle down? When did you start to see a nice rhythm in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had established ourselves as a pretty good operation within about 10 days, and we were running regular aid, and I started running missions myself to the coastal areas. That's when I saw for the first time, really saw for the first time the devastation and the death. I found boats in trees 5 kilometers inland. That's how significant this thing was. So about, I was there for all in all around 6 weeks, working non-stop round the clock. I was pretty burnt out by that point.
How long did you plan to be there for initially before that?
I'd given up. I decided I was just gonna. This was my quest.
Right.
I was ready to give up my job. I rang my boss actually at Nike, literally days in. He rang me to see if I was okay, and I said to him, "Look, I'm not coming back. This is it. this is what my destiny is this.
Wow.
It all sounds very emotional, and I guess it was at the time.
Well, we're talking
But that's
16 years ago. A young lad is, looking at making maybe a rash decision. I don't know, but just kind of like going, look, do you know what? I've got to do this ultimately. Whether you were
yeah,
saying I quit, you were saying
well, yeah. I mean,
I've
I
got to
just
do this.
yeah, I had absolutely my purpose was absolutely clear. And if that meant sacrificing my career, my job, my lifestyle, I was fine with that.
Mm,
Thankfully, my boss, who's a super smart guy and a good friend, saw beyond that and just incredible working for Nike at the time. Nike were unbelievable during that period. Not only did, I mean, Jeremy, my boss, sort of just say to him, he just said to me, look, just take it day by day, keep us informed of what you're doing. Don't make any rash decisions. Your job's here waiting for you when you're ready. They paid my salary, they paid the phone bills, they paid everything while I was out there. Incredible, really.
well supported.
So, and I'm very grateful, eternally grateful to them, because by the end of 6 weeks, I was burnt out, and I was like, by then things had settled in Sri Lanka, and people started to forget about the tsunami.
Yeah.
The sad reality. That's what happens, right? So, and there was plenty still to do out there, but the politics started to kick in, and things started to become quite difficult. From a political point of view, between the Tamil Tigers and the government, and it started to get a bit too edgy. And it made my decision making was much slower. And I thought by that point, I think I've done enough now. I think, and my friends over there also said, look, time to take a step back now.
Hand it back, maybe.
Right, yeah. So, and that's what we decided to do. But in the last few weeks of my time there, it was really apparent that, there was a lot of kids that had been orphaned, made homeless, lost their families. Sri Lanka has its fair share of children, displaced kids anyway, before the tsunami, street kids. But the tsunami came along and, wiped out most of these fishing villages. A lot of families lost their lives, lost their livelihoods. So there was clearly a lot of work to be done in terms of helping some of these kids. And, I'd been staying in touch with my family about all of that as well. And so when I came back, and I briefed my family and all my experiences and that kind of stuff, they felt a calling as well. And my sister and my brother-in-law traveled to Sri Lanka soon after my return, and they went and worked around some camps as well, and they found 13 children who had been completely orphaned, and no one available to look after them. And you got to understand, there was a lot of these kids, and the government were stretched, and I think had we not intervened, those children wouldn't have survived. So we decided to take these 13 kids and repatriate them, and we put them in a safe haven, which was in the grounds of a temple on the other side of the island. The temple, the patron of the temple, as in the chairman, if you like, was my brother-in-law's father, so in the family. So he gave up some land for us to look after these kids. So we had 13 children who essentially became our kids. Yeah. We became instant parents, if you like, to them. And so between my sister, my brother-in-law and I, we set up a charity, a UK-based charity and a Sri Lankan-based charity called Sivan Arul. And we dedicated ourselves to fostering these kids. And that was the start of, I suppose, the next phase of my journey.
Yes, I think I think that's where we have to go with this, because so this is now what 2004. Well, what are we talking about? March,
2005.
April?
It's March, April 2005. My sister and brother-in-law had just come back from Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Had highlighted this challenge. I was back at Nike working.
Yeah.
I spent quite a bit of time relaying my story and my experience. A lot of people were interested, and a lot of people deserved to know my story because of especially the Nike execs, because of the commitment they had made to me during that time.
Yeah.
And I told them about these kids that we had, because they asked me, what are you going to do now, after that? And I said, well, we're still keeping our hand in and still going to continue to try and help us wherever we can. And we have these 13 children who are now our focus, and Nike got quite interested in them. And they did the most amazing thing. They had raised money through the tsunami time. As I say, the Nike staff in the EMEA office in Hilversum in the Netherlands, the staff had raised quite a bit of money. Cake bake sales, car washing, anything they could to try and raise money to contribute to survivors and victims of the tsunami. Yeah. Nike had collected that money on behalf of the staff, and they were going to distribute it amongst registered charities. And then they heard my story, and they heard about the 13 kids, and they heard that we had set up a charity, and they heard that we were planning to build a home for these kids, and they'd heard that we were on a journey to sort of raise funds. And would you believe it? They gave us the money, all of it.
No.
So they gave us a substantial amount of money.
Wow.
Yep. And with that money, we built the first kids' home. That's
beautiful.
In Mannar, yeah. And the home's called the Nike home. So it's, as a dedication. It has a swoosh on it, yeah. So, and that's the only thing Nike asked me to do, was not to over-publicize the fact that they had been that generous. And I've maintained that commitment as much as I can.
Yeah, because I've never heard that. I mean, in all our years of friendship, I didn't know.
Which is why you'll find, Philip, that Christian and I will never wear any other sporting brand other than Nike, which is the truth.
Okay. Yeah,
and Sivi was upset because I burnt her Adidas trainers when she arrived on the scene, and she also now knows that Nike's the way to go. So the loyalty is there. So
gotcha.
Yeah,
I'll be careful what I wear.
You should.
Next time I come and visit.
You should. But what they did for us was absolutely remarkable, and hold a torch to them today.
Yeah. And to all the people, around the country, and because I think there was a big relief aid focus from multiple sort of organisations.
Yeah, of course. I mean, my story is just my story, but there's so many.
It's great to have that sort of insight of just such generosity, and how it's then rewarded, and how people come together and say, do you know what? Let's fulfil this, because you could spread it out, or what have you. But if you sort of take a focus and you go, right, okay, let's actually fulfill this project or what have you.
It was incredible. And we put up the first home, which was a good sized building that would accommodate about 50 kids. Obviously we had 13 at the time, but we knew that there was a whole pipeline of children in need.
I see.
And so really from 2005 through to probably at the peak in 2009, when the Civil War really was at its height, we went from 13 children to 200 kids. Wow. So we accommodated and cared for about 200 kids, and today we have around 140. So our 2-year-old that came to us in 2005 is now 18. Our 10-year-old is now like 26 and gone through university. So our story hasn't stopped, and
Yeah.
you
So
know,
if you just if you step back through those ages, so you have literally had children from the ages of what? So when they were 13, what were the age ranges at that time?
so of the 13, we had kids who range from the age of 2 or 3. By the way, some of these kids we didn't know their ages, right? So some of the kids we didn't know their names. You know, some of these kids had seen trauma that you just wouldn't imagine. Some of these kids saw their families die in front of them. We had two kids who were buried in sand up to here after the tsunami. And when people were walking around trying to clear up the debris, they just thought they were the top of 2 coconuts heads. Yeah, and they literally had lifted these 2 babies out of the ground. So
yeah.
So these kids, they're not your regular displaced children. These are kids who come to us with serious trauma, psychological, physical, emotional trauma. And yes, so they range from about 2 to 13, 14 years old. And then of course we had more and more and more and more.
Okay, so they're just like, so you've set this up, words got out, and I'm assuming that people have gone, do you know what? I suppose kids are being
yeah, so it took us a while. I mean,
it
took us about 5 years to really establish ourselves as a formal organization. My brother-in-law, Jer, he's the spearhead behind the whole operation.
Right.
He's the engine room. He's the one that's really made it all work and put it together. My sister's role is more the maternal side that the kids need desperately as well, to offer that comfort and thinking about their welfare in a slightly different way. My role, I guess, is more developmental, thinking about the future and how can we shape this future for these children and give them a path. So we've kind of got different roles, but my brother-in-law's absolutely the centerpiece of it, and he's the one that has driven it to the success it sees today. But it took us about 5 years really to establish ourselves as a reputable.
So what sort of thought process did you have then? When did you start thinking the way that you're alluding to in regards to what the future's going to hold?
It's funny, before this podcast, I have a file which I haven't looked at for about 10 years. And I opened it up and I found the business case that I wrote in 2005.
Right.
And I wrote a business case that tried to map out what the next 10 years would look like for this, if it went the way we wanted to do. And I was reading it earlier, and it's incredible how close we've got to it. So we've talked about, first of all, repatriating the kids and saving them. Then we talked about establishing a foundation for the elderly, who are incredibly vulnerable in Sri Lanka as well.
Right.
And then we focused on, so there were 3 areas of focus for us: the children, which is the orphanage side of the business of our charity, the elderly, about how do we take care of them, and then the third is to support the women. And many women in Sri Lanka, especially in the north and east, were widowed through the civil war. So there were lots of them. So we wanted to support them as well, and that's what our 3 pillars were back in 2005, and that's what our areas of focus have been. And so that's that. I was looking at that business case and pretty proud to say that we've delivered against it, like exceeded against it, because obviously we now have we have 2 homes for the kids now, boys and girls. We have an extended program of activity to keep and look after the elderly and give them as much support as we can. And then we sponsor 1,000 widows, financially sponsor 1,000 widows, and we've built a factory that gives them work, which has become an incredibly successful entity on its own.
Tell me something about that.
The factory was started. So we had to think about providing these children as they grow up into young adults and into adults. For we needed to find a way of teaching them some skills. Education was our number one goal, but not all of the kids were going to be academic and successful through universities. But we've managed to put every year about 5 or 6 kids through university.
That's fantastic.
Which is incredible considering these kids come from nothing. But the ones that aren't academically successful, we had to think about how do we skill them up to be able to be useful in the community and for them to provide work for themselves. But to do that, we ended up deciding on building our own little industries, if you like. So we built a bakery for the children to learn to bake and then provide food for themselves and to sell bread. We set up a dairy farm for them to learn to care for and provide milk and curd to the community. We built a factory to produce spices, like from raw chili powder to turmeric to all those curry spices that. And of all of the entities that have really been successful, the Spice Factory has been by far the greatest success. It's now independent. It's a PVT. It's its own business now. It's called Sivan Arul Products.
Sure.
But it's its own business, and all of the money that they make there goes back into the factory to pay the wages and the local community. It won the Sri Lankan Exporter of the Year award a little while ago. It now exports spices all over the world: Australia, America, Canada, the UK. It is phenomenal, and that continues to expand and grow now as well.
How amazing!
Yeah, so that's been a huge success.
Yeah. So and that's to date.
Yeah, to date. So that's, we continue to push on our ideas, and we've now adopted other orphanages that have been less successful. So we've brought on more children or more kids. We have vocational units that we've built around the island to provide computing skills, etc. We do remote learning with teachers from around the world, teaching kids the English and maths and sciences.
Yeah.
So, I suppose 16 years on, we're an enterprise now. And I think it's fair to say we care for thousands of people in terms of livelihood and future. And, our kids, who we're most proud of because they've done so well themselves individually. We have kids who now come back and work for us in some capacity or other. We have children that are going through university who are doing really, really well. We have kids who are tremendous in sports and athletics. So it's been, a remarkable journey and very organic, lots of hard work behind the scenes, particularly from my sister and my brother-in-law. We've brought in more trustees as well. So we have representation from Australia now as well. So, it's been a really organic journey. We haven't, I suppose we haven't been that public in that journey. I guess we've just been quietly going about our business and with.
It's amazing to hear the that sort of that kind of circle of starting at that point where it was, just being a little bit hungover from Christmas Day's indulgence, to having that calling, to go and getting those bits and pieces from the pharmacies, rat-a-tat-tat on the shutters, to moving into now, as you describe it, real sort of hope as developing enterprises through spices, through international trades. It's remarkable, really. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's incredible on a number of levels. I think on a personal level, whilst it was a horrific situation, for me personally, it was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because it changed me fundamentally, changed my outlook, it changed my sense of value and purpose. But it also, that fearlessness, it's amazing what you can achieve by being utterly fearless, you know. And I experienced it, and I genuinely know what the limits of my capability are. And they're significant, you know. They're significant.
You probably know that they are actually limitless, you know.
Well, they may be limitless, or maybe, but I just felt like, you know, I did stuff that I never could have imagined ever doing, and part of me now is craving that again. Right. But you can't. It's quite difficult to artificially create that. You need that adrenaline pumping through you.
Sure.
You know, you've got to have that real clear sense of purpose. I mean, but it certainly changed me. It certainly given me an appreciation of what I personally can achieve if I put my mind to it.
Most of the podcasts that I've done so far, there are real similarities in people's stories to varying degrees, you know, but there are those real, you know, and I love to hear about them. It really does sort of, it kind of pricks my ears up, you know, when I hear of these types of situations, you know, whether it's someone missing a flight to try and do something important, and then just having the, you know, the tenacity to kind of get through that and make it really positive, because we do have these, you know, fight or flight instincts in us, and they can be very exciting.
I think that sense of adventure is in all of us. I think maybe society dampens it a little bit, so you kind of, you know, you try and find it in different ways, but I wouldn't will it upon anybody, but I would, if there was a way of injecting that adventure, it's the best drug ever, I think, you know, to really get the most out of yourself.
I mean, we can apply that in, you know, slightly less severe circumstances to our lives. Do you know what I mean? I think what you did and the situation that was upon you, I think, you know, to get to the status where you were would have taken hard work and would have taken a degree of tenacity. So I think it was probably always within you to do that, but it's just having that that kind of everyday sighting of these situations to get you to reflect. And I hope people who listen to this think about that sometimes, you know, just what you really are capable of achieving without fear.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's something in all of this about having a purpose. You know, without purpose and without drive, what is there? And I think sometimes we forget, you know, what our purpose is, or if indeed we have that. You know, sometimes purpose is overtaken because, you know, when you have kids, for example, they become your new purpose, don't they? And then, but sometimes you forget your own individual purpose. And that's the bit I think, for me, I always think about this, my experience and my story. I wasn't looking for this. You know, it came along and slapped me in the face so damn hard that it made me do something different. And that's why I consider myself so damn lucky to have had that experience, you know. So I always think, because I now know I have it in me, what can I now do? Where's my new purpose? What can I do next? And I think part of the reason we've been so successful, touch wood, with our story and our journey and how things have gone for our foundation is because we are clear about our purpose.
Right.
We have souls to save, and that's our purpose. and we can do that. We can help them, and add value to their lives and be useful.
That is beautiful. So what's next?
Well, I don't know. I suppose we just, like I say, we haven't really ever thought too hard about what's next. We have a plan, but we don't try too hard.
So
it's all
here and now.
kinds.
So how can people help? How can people get involved? How can people raise money, donate?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I mean, we've not ever gone out cup in hand asking for money. It's a strange thing. We have a tremendous diaspora of caring people. I mean, Sri Lankans who care for Sri Lankans.
Yeah.
And we've been very lucky to have had funding from them. But where I think we can help, we can get, I mean, there's always, the development of places in Sri Lanka, there's plenty of opportunity there. And I wouldn't limit the assistance to me or my foundation. It's just, I think where people can help is, take on a project, whether it's in Sri Lanka or anywhere in the world, take that project on and own it, and make a difference, because you can so easily do it, if you just put your mind to it. And I think, I would like to sort of be an ambassador for that as best as I can, to try and promote people's thinking a little bit. You don't have to help us, but you can help somebody find a way to do it. And I think that would be my message, really. Find that project and make it happen. I have some great friends, yourself included, who I know have an active interest in everything that we do, and that's really important to us as well. Having people who just care about what we're trying to do, who have got the time and inclination to be interested in what we're doing. That's really important too. I have friends who want to get out to Sri Lanka and want to contribute and add value. That's really important. And I think as long as that just keeps coming, we'll be fine. We'll just do fine.
What a beautiful degree of humility there, Suren. I mean, I've just said to you there, plug it. Try and get some more money. But you know what and in short, you said, give your time, give time to something, give your energy to something. Don't necessarily think that it's going to be a financial remedy or what have you. And I guess you've answered that before by making yourselves self-sufficient, by creating those elements within your organization that keep things perpetual.
Yeah. If you remember what I said right at the beginning, Phil, I said to you before the tsunami came along, I was that chap that would, maybe put 10 quid in a children in need collection, or I might sponsor a friend of mine who's doing a marathon, but I didn't really give any thought to what my money was doing, even though those people were. I didn't. I just kind of did it because, well, that was the kind of thing you do. And the reason I sort of encourage people to sort of find their own project and invest in it, not financially necessarily, but with your time and your caring, is because the chances are, if you do that, you'll stay with it for a long, long time.
Right.
Rather than putting 10 quid in a pot and forgetting about it.
Yeah.
Which is why
£10.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Find something that you're going to own and you're going to care about and you're going to make happen. The longevity of that and the difference that's going to make is not only going to be significant to those people who receive, but it's going to be significant to yourself. And that's what I feel. I feel blessed, fortunate, so thankful that I've had the opportunity to add value, and I feel great about it.
That's a good message.
Yeah, and I wish more people would feel the same.
16 years on.
Yeah.
From that disaster.
Yeah.
And this is the outcome. I think that's wonderful. I think from those tragedies, these are the type of journeys that that really make a difference. It's wonderful to hear. Very good, very good. So, okay, well that's that part. That's that aspect. I think we covered that off, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Phil.
How did that feel for you?
It was very cathartic. Yeah, it's not. Friends talk about this very often, and I don't think I've ever sat and actually talked about it as much as I have just now. I might do snippets here and there, and you know, I mean, there's 100 stories behind there as well, and quite a few of my friends have sort of tried for years to encourage me to be more open about these experiences, and I kind of always feel like it's like my story,
sure,
and it's personal to me. But I think what I've realized is that actually it's a good story. There's messages in there that are good, and it's worth sharing. So I'm just grateful for you giving me the time to be able to do that. Actually, it's been good.
Yeah, well,
and I don't think I would have been more comfortable doing it in any other way, really. But no, it's been great. It's been great.
Well, that's the beauty of the Philip Maloney podcast.
It is indeed.
Download, like, and subscribe. I hold the power of 14 subscribers as of this morning, and I think that is just going to explode.
Listen, mate, we started with 13 children 16 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. You're going to be in your thousands before you know
I have no doubt. Listen, whatever will be, will be. Whatever will be. And you know, anything like that is. Let's just say it's not the purpose of this podcast.
Of course not.
This conversation is the purpose of this podcast. So yeah, that's what I'm going to hold the integrity of for as long as possible. But yeah, no, that's good. And it's been great. It's been great riding from London to Brighton for a number of charities and all the rest of it. I think people can do so much, you know, when they put their minds to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a great thing. It's a great thing that's happened. It's a great thing that's happened. You know, you've managed to prize a lot of positivity and just sort of squeeze it into the situation. So that's really good.
It's great. It's great. You know, and there's been a lot of people who have supported us, not least my friends, yourself included, Phil, over the years. And I often think about how can I make this a bit more real, I guess. And I can't wait to take you guys out there to see firsthand what's gone on, to meet the kids. Yeah. Some of them aren't kids anymore. Some of them are on Facebook chatting to me and sending pictures of them on their motorbikes and, you know, going to universities and future partners and all sorts. So,
well, let me share an anecdote. Let me share an anecdote for when I, you know, because everybody's got a story, and you know, some people it resonates, some people it doesn't. But I remember. And I will try and hold it together during this, but I remember you sitting in your lounge and you just come back and you had a video and you delivered some toys or some sporting equipment and things like that, some bits and pieces, just donations, and they'd come over to the orphanage, and everyone's so appreciative, and everyone's got these big smiles on their faces and all the rest of it. And I think I was there with my two boys as well. And yeah, I was. And, you know, we had all the riches and luxuries of Western living. You know, they had clothes on, they had full tummies. You know, we were ready to go and do some sort of leisure activity. And you played this video and everybody got their bits and pieces. And there was this one lad who sat there with, he looked just the most content in his that he's ever been, so content with opening a DVD, not even a DVD player, but he opened up what was a DVD and started to twirl it around in that DVD, and he was so satisfied and so happy that's what he thought it does. That's what he thought the whole point of that gift was to just open it up. And it just made me think that, we don't need lots and lots of things. We don't need lots and lots of things. But if we can enjoy what we have, or if we can appreciate what we're offered and what have you, if you break it down to just a simple function, it gets powerful. See it through there, where he's just sitting, and that's what he wanted to do with it. And it was just like, for me, it broke me then, and it would again, because it was just like, we don't have to have so much, when some people have so little,
it's a lovely anecdote. Yeah, I remember it well. And yeah, you're right. I think we do forget sometimes what we have and how lucky we are. But those kids are happy. Those kids are, happy with their lot. And I think that's what I've realised with, working with these children who have come from some very different, very difficult backgrounds. Is in all of that sadness, they always try and find a way of being happy.
Yeah.
It's incredible, really. The resilience of these kids is incredible. And I do my best to try and employ these that sense in my own child, in Christian, Christian who's very blessed and very lucky and very privileged. But for me, it's as important for him to understand the grounding, of what there is outside of this world, because it's very different. And I'm really lucky because he's got a real appreciation for it as well. And whenever I've gone out to Sri Lanka to the orphanage or do my charity missions or runs, since he was 4, Christian would pack a small bag for me of his toys. Without prompting, he would pack his bag, he would give up his toys, and he would try and figure out so he's got his own favorite kids amongst that, so there's a bit of preference there. But he's got his favorite, so he'll pick out specific toys for specific kids, and then he'll pack a little bag and he'll give it to me, and I'll go and deliver it. And he's been doing that since he was 4, and he does it today. He Skypes with these kids and he chats to them. So he hasn't met them in person, and I'm hoping once we get through this craziness, we can get out there and he can meet kids. And can you imagine an 11-year-old here who goes to private school and has pretty much anything he wants, meeting an 11-year-old there who is still wearing the same flip-flops they were wearing when they were 5?
Well, the thing is, with the kids, they'll be absolutely fine.
Exactly, and there is no difference,
They won't see it. Yeah,
they'll play cricket together. They'll, enjoy the same games, the same jokes, the same humour across different languages as well. They'll find a way, and I think that's what's amazing. Is that I think the more we can encourage that kind of interaction, it's not about feeling sorry for people.
No,
it's about recognizing that there's ways
you can engage on the same level.
Oh yeah,
and be completely different.
Oh yeah,
on a level and be completely different.
Yeah, I remember when our good friends Mark and Nick came out to Sri Lanka in the 10th year, and Mark, these kids had never seen a white person before, not physically.
Yeah.
And then this big lanky 6-foot guy in the form of Mark Lemming comes along.
Should we be really kind and call him Strawberry Blonde?
Yeah, is he Strawberry Blonde? Okay.
Yeah.
But you can imagine what that must have been. Those kids just stared at him for 10 minutes, couldn't work, and then I've got this fantastic video clip of him sat down and these 4 or 5 boys literally playing with his hair because they hadn't seen anything quite like it. But that, that little moment there.
He loved it. They loved that.
I mean, both of them have told me that it was a life-changing experience for them. In fact, Nick the other day said to him it was probably, in fact, it is for him the most special moment or experience he's ever had. And it is special. It is special. So again, the more exposure we can get to for people to have that, I think.
Yeah, we'll stick a load of. I think we've got the articles. There's a really cool radio interview. Is it
NPR?
NPR. NPR.
Yeah, I was sat in the middle of a dock in Colombo. I guess if people do listen to the audio, just to context it, I had arranged. I got invited to the Italian embassy that morning because the Italians had heard that we were moving aid, and they were very frustrated because they had all this aid. They had tons of aid had come in from the Italian people, and they were so frustrated that the government weren't able to move it. Right. So I got invited to the Italian embassy because they just said they wanted to bypass the government and come straight to us and have us move the aid for them.
Right.
So I went to the embassy, met with the ambassador. You got to remember, I was wearing like a pair of shorts and t-shirts and flip-flops, right? Yeah. So got met by this beautifully suited ambassador, the finest Italian suits going. And he said to me in his broken English, we have aid, we want you to move it. I want you to move. So I said, how many trucks worth can I take? And he goes, just 2. So I said, okay. And then the Italian Special Forces, I got introduced to them.
Right.
So I got taken to these docks, the Colombo docks, in a Hummer. Okay. Driven by Italian Special Forces, 12 of them. Huge guys, Marines.
Sure.
Right, who had been sent over to help. They had K9 units and all sorts of stuff with them. They'd been sent over to help with delivering this aid. But of course, they looked like complete fools because they'd been sat there not being able to go anywhere. So I ended up in the docks with 12 of these Marines. They opened up the warehouse where the Italian aid was, and honest to God, you remember, Phil, I was driving around Colombo filling with my plastic bag of money trying to buy aid, right? Scraps.
Yeah.
They'd opened the shutters of this huge port, this huge dock, and inside it was like Christmas. There were boxes upon boxes of medicines, bedding, food. There were inflatable dinghies. There were all sorts of stuff in there. And I just looked at it and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So I had arranged for my haulier to send the 2 trucks.
Yeah.
And the Italians having arrived there, it was hot day. And in the docks it's even drier and hot. And I'd arranged the 2 trucks to come, and the guy that was leading the unit was this little Italian guy in a white suit, again really well dressed.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a bureaucrat sent by the ambassador.
Right.
So you had this little Danny DeVito looking guy and these 12 Italian Marines, and they all just stood around while I was coordinating these workers to load these trucks, okay, these shirtless guys. I had to organize and all sorts of negotiate terms, all that. And these guys were just stood around watching me do it. And after I loaded the first truck, the little Italian Danny DeVito guy comes up to me and says, where can we have some food? We're hungry.
All right.
So I was like, well, I have no idea, but you're a long way from anywhere, really.
Yeah.
They said, no, we must eat. So I said, okay. So I said, well, you're going to have to take your vehicles and then go and find somewhere. So they said, yeah, fine, we'll be back in an hour. So I said, could you do me a favor? Could you just bring me back a bottle of water? I had nothing on me, nothing at all. So they said, sure. So they disappeared. I loaded the second truck up, and an hour had passed. They didn't turn up. They were like nowhere to be seen. Another hour went by. I was now hot and bothered. And then I was sat on the dock, and that's when the NPR guys turned up. And they started asking me questions, and you hear the radio interview. Yeah. After I did the radio interview, I sat there thinking, looking at all this aid behind me, knowing that I had another 18 trucks, right, with my haulier. Yeah. Knowing that there were people dying and there were people desperate. Yeah. So I thought, you know what? Pick the phone up to my, with my big ringtone phone. Yeah, yeah. We didn't have smartphones back then, do we? So
send a few more trucks.
So I rang my haulier and I said, send them all.
Yeah.
Send them all.
Fill them up.
So this convoy of 18 trucks appeared about half an hour later. Still no sign of the Italians in Danny. And I said to my labourers, I renegotiated some terms with the labourers, and I got them to start loading, literally emptying the warehouse. I took inflatable boats and put them in, and filled up the rest of the truck with other stuff, because I knew that in Ampara, one of the towns on the other side, one of the bridges had broken, been smashed by the tsunami, and there was an island that had been isolated, and there was no way to get to them.
Yeah.
So I thought, inflatables, I'll take a couple of those. So we literally filled up 18 trucks. So I think they did it so quickly. I mean, so these have been away now for about 3 or 4 hours. And I was parched. I didn't have a drink, nothing. By the time they come back, there was this long line of Tata trucks, all fully loaded. And Danny DeVito comes running up to me saying, what are these? I said, well, these are your trucks. He goes, what do you mean? We only asked for 2. I said, no, you said 20. And he said, no, 2. I said, no, you said 20. Your boss said to me 20. So I was lying through my teeth. And I was like crapping myself. I wasn't sure how this was going to go. And there were 12, highly trained killers there, right? Yeah. And Danny DeVito was jumping up and down.
You're not averse to having a gun pointed in your face.
No, exactly. Like I said, I was pretty fearless. And Danny DeVito, just in between this, so he was getting pretty angry. He'd taken his shoes off for some reason as well, I think because it was so hot. Right. He'd taken his very smart Italian leather shoes off, and he put them on the side. And then anyway, he's arguing with me. He's saying, no, we can't take, we just said 2. And I said, look, get your ambassador on the phone, because he said to me 20. So they had this these big sort of military style mobile phone things, sat phone, I think they call them, or something.
Yeah.
So he's got a direct line to the ambassador. Ambassador's saying to me, what's going on? I said, well, you asked for 20 trucks. He goes, no, I said 2. I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Ambassador, but you definitely said to me 20. And I have 20 trucks fully laden with your goods ready to go. I'm ready to send them all over the island to save thousands of people's lives. The Italian people are going to be incredibly happy with you, and I don't understand why you're having a problem with this, because the aid is all here. Why not let's just do it? It took about half an hour of going backwards and forwards. And then I said to him, look, and in the meantime, I've now got the TRO guys calling me, because the Italian ambassadors now call the head of the TRO complaining to him. Right. So my boss is calling me saying, what the hell's going on? And I told him the truth. I said, look, they did say 2, but come on, man. There's so much. Let's do it. So anyway, after some negotiation, I said to him, look, by the way, I've also got all of the media guys following me around. I can give you some fantastic publicity.
Yeah.
You get photos, you guys come and stand in front of the trucks, show your Italian people what you're doing, the first nation in Sri Lanka to truly contribute, the Italians. So I have to
Just
say,
a little massage.
I did my best sales pitch I've ever done in my entire life. And then, of course, eventually the ambassador says, "Okay, we'll do it." So we had to then arrange for this media guys to come down, and they did. Danny DeVito, in the meantime, is now furious, screaming at me, not because of the 20 trucks, because one of the workers had stolen his shoes. So he was in this white fancy shoe,
No,
barefoot.
20 trucks and a pair of shoes.
So he's screaming at me, saying, "Where are my shoes?" And I said, "I don't know where your shoes are." And I look at all the workers, and I'm looking at all their feet. They're barefoot. Obviously, they're not wearing them. So I'm saying to them in Tamil, "Guys, who's got these guys' shoes?" And all of them just looked at me. He says, "No, we don't know what you're talking about." I was like, "Fair enough." So I said to Danny, "Look, I'm sorry about your shoes, but," I said, I can get you some flip-flops, So we managed to find him some dirty, skanky flip-flops, which he then continued to walk around in. But so by about sundown, so the media were there. It was dark. It was a phenomenal sight, though, Phil. All these trucks were laid up, and these are the colourful Indian Tata trucks,
Yeah.
Lit up, and they had big they'd made this big banner, and they had the Italian flag and all that kind of stuff. And then they were dispatched, with the ambassador and all that. And it was front page news the following morning, all the national newspapers.
Brilliant.
And yeah, the aid was distributed right across the island. I then got called in by my boss, TRO boss, a few hours later, and he asked me whether there was anything in those trucks that perhaps we shouldn't have been transporting. So I was like what? And he said, "Well, did you send any inflatable dinghies in any of those trucks?" And I said, "I might have done." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, because the government are accusing the Tamil Tigers of transporting military equipment to fund the war."
Right.
And the Italians are now being accused of supporting the Tamil Tigers. And there's now an international incident with the Italian government and the Sri Lankan government.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, well, I said, to be honest with you, I didn't really know what was in those boxes. What do you want me to do? But of course, but the inflatables got to Ampara, and they managed to transport the aid, and then the Italians got wrapped around the knuckles by the Sri Lankan government. But you know what? C'est la vie. C'est la vie.
Yeah. Aid got out.
Aid got out. Yeah, we got. Like I said, the purpose was clear, and we made it happen. But it was one of my favourite moments in that time. So the NPR. Yeah, 2. But so the NPR radio, if you listen to the audio, that's me in between doing that with the Italians.
It's definitely an interesting listen. I would highly recommend it. I'll stick it in the section below, the description of this video when I upload it. Definitely. Yeah, I would encourage people to look at that. Listen to it. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, I love the fact that he describes the shirtless men hauling, sack after sack of flour and
rice flour.
Yeah. So that's all courtesy of the Italian.
It was.
Which is fantastic. I mean, all joking aside, that's an amazing thing for them to contact you and
you know what? Done. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, despite it was perhaps on my part a little bit manipulative, but at the end of the day, it's it served a purpose, and they genuinely saved. I would say they saved that aid probably saved 20,000 people.
Yeah, no doubt.
There was no doubt. There was no doubt that was there.
I mean, like, if you took two trucks and you went on your way, nobody's going to say anything. Nobody's going to say anything about that. The fact that you took 20 trucks, and just sort of delivered that all around.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Only the bureaucrats would have a problem with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good. Good. Well, what else would you like to talk about? You got any
I don't know. There's so many stories.
Got billion stories.
There are. Just as I'm talking now, I'm starting to remember lots of different stories. So there's some fantastic stories. I mean, mainly, I suppose, I met some incredible people on that journey as well. People who gave up an awful lot for the souls of others. There were people there with kids who'd given up everything to try and help. So I mean, I think if anything at all, it restores your belief in humanity when you see and experience things like that. It's just such a shame it's short-lived, I think. And soon forgotten. So
the legacy lives on. The
legacy does, and long may that continue as well.
Absolutely. Mate,
it's been good, mate. It's been really good.
I loved it. Yeah, no, that was a great insight. So I think we can probably wrap that section, that chapter up quite nicely. I'd love to have you back again for some more
for part
input.
2.
Yeah,
well, maybe, I'd love that as well. I think maybe next time we can talk a little bit more about some of the initiatives that we've got going on.
Yeah,
with the charity. We're building homes now for the older kids.
Wow.
For £5,000, we can build our adults now a home, a 1-bedroom home.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic.
As a unit. So it gives them that start in life. We have land, so we've secured land, and now we can start to build sort of homes for these guys so that they can start alive. The next stage is for them to find partners.
Yeah.
Start a family.
Well, what a journey!
And become self-sufficient.
Yeah, what a fantastic journey, and you've set them up perfectly. They've got a little industry around them. Like you said about with the spices and the baking and all the rest.
Yeah,
of
we've done everything that we can do. I mean, there's always more to do. There's always plenty more, and it's never smooth. I'm probably making it sound like it's just been perfect, but it hasn't. It's been an incredible labour of love, especially for sort of my brother-in-law, of keeping control. And at the end of the day, we're talking about human beings, we're talking about kids, we're talking about children that become teenagers, all of the challenges that come with that. It's not been smooth, but by and large, we've been very lucky.
Yeah,
it's been where we got to,
hasn't it?
Oh, just continues to be. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Nah, brilliant. Good. Give yourself a pat on the back, mate. That was lovely. Lovely to hear about all of that.
Well, thank you, mate, for the time and for the Philip Maloney podcast.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the 1 million views.
Yeah, there you go. Like, share, and subscribe.
Well,
We'll get there. It's early days. Like, how many days in? I'm just going to actually find out live how many days in we are to this. 6 days.
That's good.
We're going to be fine.
You wait. Well, this time next year, it'll be like you're going to be famous, mate. You're going to be everywhere.
At least 20 subscribers.
You're going to be on the side of double-decker buses, and
yeah, let's as long as people get the value. But otherwise, yeah, let's I'm not adverse to putting this boat race on the side of a double-decker bus. Could do a nice little public service there.
Could do, just next to a packet of Maltesers.
Spot the Maltesers. Yeah. The Philip Maloney podcast, sponsored by Maltesers. That'd be right, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Oh, work.
It's a priceless image.
Oh, quality.
Yeah. So, okay, mate.
Good.
That's a wrap.
Thanks, buddy. Really enjoyed it. Good talking to you as well.
On the way to your job, all alone with your kids, with your wife, or with your dog. You can listen anywhere. You can listen everywhere to the Philip Maloney podcast.